You're listening to a Soul One podcast.
And another trailer that dropped, actually the day our episode came out last week, was the Superman trailer. You know what, Taylor? I just realized I did the pompous podcast thing, where I just continued on from the previous episode.
Oh, is that a rule? Is that a rule that exists in podcast land?
Well,
so you're not supposed to reference your episode before?
You usually, I mean, you can, but usually you do a little bit of a re-intro, you know, every week, which I definitely don't always do. And I just did the and where were we? Kind of, we were talking about the Conjuring trailer last week. So maybe I should get, it's too late.
This is the one from the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is playing Lois Lane.
That's right.
This version?
Yes, it is. Yeah, I'm very excited for Rachel Brosnahan to play Lois Lane. Great choice. So this trailer, it's James Gunn is the director. So basically, because the DC movie universe was in such a shamble, they've scrapped everything but Robert Pattinson. And
everything has been successful.
That's right. So they're like, no, we're going to keep you. Everything else they've scrapped, and they're basically starting over again with where they should, a Superman movie.
But Mike, they didn't scrap the Penguin TV show.
No, because that's connected to Batman.
Oh, okay,
anything connected to that Batman, they love, and they're not scrapping any of that. That's still going to exist. But everything else is getting a pretty hard reset. So
here's a dumb question.
Okay.
I'm afraid to ask it because I don't want you to spend the next hour telling me about Superman lore. But
you don't want that?
No, I don't want that.
Why not?
For some reason, when I think of Superman, I think of the 1950s. So the Superman movies from the 70s, were they set in the 70s? When is Superman set, I guess is my question.
Well, yeah, I mean, it depends.
Whenever it's made?
Yeah, definitely prior to it going to movies and stuff, Superman was very much a 60s, 70s kind of thing. The first Superman film, which I believe, please don't quote me on this, but I think it was 1978 it came out. It was set at the same time, late 70s.
Right.
So I think that Superman is sort of set in whatever time you want to set Superman in.
You know what also I might be thinking, because Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is set in the 60s. I just assume by default this movie is going to be set in the 50s or 60s.
Her, yeah. I think, yes, she's only really had this one big role, but I think, she probably is a good enough actor to warrant
sure
different things. We'll find out what her Lois Lane is going to be like. I'm impressed so far by her. Now the guy playing Superman he's got a really long name. Let me see. Oh no, he doesn't. David Cornswet. David. It's a weird name. David Cornswet.
That's not a.
I don't.
That's a name.
He's been in almost nothing. So he was in that failed television show Hollywood, which I do remember him. He played kind of the main character in that, and then he was in Pearl, and he was in Twisters, and I do remember him from Twisters.
I can't even picture his face, Mike.
He kind of looks generic, but in terms of Superman, he's got the Superman look,
right?
So you're fine there. And the movie itself feels much more bright and colorful than Zack Snyder's
like a comic book movie.
That's right, exactly. Just exactly like a comic book movie instead of whatever Zack Snyder was doing. So I'm
with Henry Cavill. Was his Superman?
Henry Cavill, it was Superman. Who unfortunately is no longer playing Superman. Now he loved playing Superman. It's just he was never in a good movie. Was part of the issue.
Doesn't that suck? Where it's what happened with the girls with that Madam Web movie. that
Yes.
they're like, here's our shot to be in like X franchise or whatever through no fault of their own. It was just a horrible, or maybe through fault of their own. Although we know like Sydney Sweeney or whatever is a good actress. So, anyways, I digress. So it sucks that like someone like Henry, who obviously loved the role, is like on record of being a huge nerd, comic book guy, video game guy, and then I don't know, like, is he not a good actor? I can't.
He's okay. He was okay.
Like, I would say he was The Witcher too.
Superman. Yes, yeah.
Where he was so excited to be The Witcher, and then after two seasons they booted him.
I think he's an okay actor. He was a fine Superman. He was a terrible Clark Kent. So you've got to, just like Batman, you've got to be able to play both Bruce Wayne and Batman.
Right.
You've got to play Clark Kent and Superman. And from the limited things I've seen, so far this one's a little bit more balanced, as the Corn Sweat, or whatever his name is giving it in both roles. Like, he clearly is trying to differentiate them. So liking what I'm seeing so far. But yeah, Henry Cavill, he's fine. I think he's an okay actor. I wouldn't say he's phenomenal. He was very good in Man from U.N.C.L.E.
That's true. I was trying to think like, I haven't seen him in anything. I liked him in I definitely liked him in The Man from U.N.C.L.E. I liked him in that The League of Ungentlemanly Warfare that came out last year.
Right. Yes, yeah.
But he essentially played the same character in those two movies.
He was a different character in Mission Impossible, and he played that very well. He was pretty good in Mission Impossible. So I think he's one of those actors, like, he's never going to win an Oscar, but he's fine.
He's like, serviceable.
You can put him in a role and he's fine. So I don't think it's necessarily his fault. I think the vision of what Zack Snyder wants to do doesn't fit with who Superman is. Superman is supposed to be bright and colorful and sort of the like Boy Scout superhero, right? Yeah. He's not supposed to be super dark and tortured. He's tortured in his past, but by the time we meet Superman and he becomes Superman, he's sort of worked through all those angsts, and he's sort of that balance to Batman, where Batman is still brooding and tortured by his past, and that informs his actions. Superman is the opposite. He's worked through it. It informs his actions on the positive side. He is who he is because of sort of the torturous past that he's had. So
he's an alien.
Yeah, and he's an alien. That's right. That's right. And as Taylor points out, Superman is, of course, an alien.
There you go.
So yeah, but I like the trailer. I'm kind of intrigued. I don't know what this is going to be. I do think James Gunn is hit and miss for me, but we'll see. This looks very interesting.
You know what we haven't talked about, Mike? This trailer came out several weeks ago now, so it's a little bit old, but the new Wes Anderson movie. Have you seen the trailer for that?
No, I didn't even know there was a new one.
Oh, the Phoenician Scheme, I believe is what it's called. Looks much more... Longtime listeners of the show will know I am a huge Wes Anderson fan. If I could live in any sort of universe, it would probably be a Wes Anderson universe. But I did not watch his last movie, Asteroid City. And
you still haven't watched it?
I still haven't watched it. You know what happened? I saw the one before that in theaters, Mike. The one that was like vignettes.
Yes.
Like the newspaper.
The one? Yeah.
The magazine one. And it didn't really do it for me. And then this Asteroid City came out. I think it came out when I was on mat leave already.
Yeah.
So,
I saw it.
Yeah, you saw it. You reviewed it. You didn't.
I liked it.
Oh, I thought you didn't.
No, I liked it. I wouldn't say I loved it, but I think a Wes Anderson fan would absolutely love it, and I do think you would like it. I really do.
Okay, so I'll go back. But this Phoenician Scheme looks phenomenal. It looks really good from the trailer.
I didn't even know he had a new movie. So
I think it's coming out in the next couple of weeks, to be honest. I think it's...
That doesn't surprise me, because they don't market his stuff really early.
No. Or well. But yet, people go see his movies, so it's okay.
It's called Phoenician Scheme?
I think so. The Phoenician Scheme?
Yeah, the Phoenician Scheme. Yeah, I found it. June 6th in Canada. Yeah, just a couple weeks away. Oh, and there you go. All his old His whole cohorts are all in it.
Except Michael Cera. He's a
Michael
new
Cera.
addition.
Yeah. What is Michael Cera doing in there?
He looks like a lot of fun. His character looks like a lot of fun.
But Benicio del Toro, I don't think he's done anything with Wes Anderson, has he?
Was he not in the magazine movie?
Oh, you're right. He was. You're right. I just when I think Benicio del Toro, I don't think Wes Anderson, but I guess that's
I think
wrong.
he's only been in the. I think he's only been in the one.
It's so funny how Wes Anderson's one of those directors with such a distinct style, but he's so good he seems to be able to work with anybody.
And I have not ever heard anything negative about people working with him.
Mm-hmm.
So he must just be one of those guys that everyone has a good time while they're on set.
Yeah, must be. All right. Well, we've spent too much time talking about Superman and Wes Anderson. We do have a couple.
Or not enough.
I guess we could probably just do an episode on the two. That we've got 2 fan questions for today and 2 movies to review. So we've got quite a bit to get through. Before we get to our movies, we might as well do fan questions. Thank you for people for writing in. We didn't have any last week, and you decided to write in. These are kind of random though, but we'll get into
the more random, the better.
That's true. I guess I shouldn't make fun of people for writing in when we ask them to. It's probably something I shouldn't do. All right. So our first question comes from, there is no name attached to this one, so I don't know who this is from. But this says, hi, you had me at Skip It. I don't know who I should be addressing this to, so I'm addressing it to the name of the podcast. I'm really interested in the types of TV or series watchers that there are in the world. I think there are 2 types. 1, people who like to just go back and watch the same things over and over again for comfort. And 2, people who like to explore new things and really don't go back and rewatch anything. I find myself often just rewatching the same shows over and over again, and it seems like such hard work to invest and start in another TV show or series. Is this something that you have ever experienced? How would you categorize, this sentence doesn't make sense. How would you categorize your TV watching?
That's a good question. I tell people who don't watch new stuff, I often tell them that they're not missing out. I'm like, oh, you're not missing out. Just go back to your comfort shows. I think part of that is because if you are a self-professed comfort show watcher, there's no point in me recommending series to you. Like, just keep watching what you're watching. That's fine. Pre-baby, I would say that I was more of a watch something new person, but only if it was kind of like in my wheelhouse. Does that make sense, Mike? Like, I wasn't ever gonna go watch like the Black Mirror, even though people raved about it. There are a couple shows that I return to over and over again. I love Buffy. And so pre-baby, I would watch that like once a year, like all the way through. I was just saying this to someone recently, Mike. I don't watch TV anymore. And that's not like a to toot my own horn thing. Like TV, I loved watching TV pre-baby. Like coming home from work, eating dinner, finishing dinner, and then like watching TV till bedtime was my hobby. And I'm not afraid to admit that. So like I had a lot of hours that I could watch content. And so obviously I was going to watch new stuff, but we also returned to like, I've watched Parks and Rec a couple times. I've seen The Office probably twice through. Like there are a couple, like I've seen Friends countless times, Seinfeld countless times, but in like on top of that regular rotation of TV shows, like I would try to watch new shows that were kind of within my genre. Does that make sense?
It does. And I think the point you brought up about you would never go kind of outside your genre anyway, or what you were interested in anyway, regardless, makes a lot of sense. And then I think it makes sense, though, you're saying like there's sort of a pre-baby, post-baby change that also makes sense. That seems to track.
We're trying to get through what we do in the Shadows, the TV series. Mike, it's probably taken us like a year and a half, and we still have like 8 episodes left.
I find that since really in the calendar year of 2025, I don't know what's happened to me, Taylor. Well, I mean,
You're busy.
I do know what's happened to me, but I can't stop it. It's I want to, but it's I can't seem to sit down and watch anything new. Like I have a hard
Mm.
time committing to a TV series, kind of like what this listener's saying, where I will still watch TV, but it very much is things that have zero mental commitment. Like
Yeah.
I'll rewatch things this current year, more than I think I ever have. And even though there's like a new season of Daredevil, there's a new season of Andor where I liked the other seasons. There's things like coming out that I'm interested. The Last of Us, I've only literally watched one episode of the new season. I just can't seem to mentally commit to it, which is very much a this year problem. Like up until the calendar year of this year, I was still watching television, but now I'm so tired, Taylor. I just don't. I just don't have the like brain power to
I think
invest
you
emotionally in anything.
I think you wear a lot of hats, Mike, especially like
Yeah,
you've always worn a lot of hats, but in 2025 you've definitely put on more hats than
too
you
many
have
hats.
ever, and I think you just don't have you don't have the brain length or width or whatever
I gotta, I gotta,
bandwidth.
I gotta start taking some hats off. I still have my hair.
Yeah, you show that beautiful head of hair.
I don't
I
need
think, but
hats.
Mike, I think they're like not to psychologize or whatever the word is, to pathologize comfort shows. I think there is logic in wanting to go back to the shows that you know, love, and are familiar to you. Like I think there's nothing wrong with that. And I think the amount of new content that is put out is overwhelming, and the writer who wrote in for this question is right. Like Netflix puts out these what I would describe as prestige television, and then after one season, two seasons cancel. So yeah, like why would you try to watch that show? Like that oh, I forget the name of it now, like 1986 or whatever. It was like I was so invested. It was a mystery, kind of like horror sci-fi, and it ended on a cliffhanger and it was canceled after that first season. And it's like, why bother, right?
Why? That's right. That is kind of. I think part of it is why bother investing in something when it's like, well, it shows seem to even by design have shorter seasons now. Like you're
Yeah.
not really getting that longer form storytelling that I think we're all kind of used to. Like you're talking about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, 7 seasons. I
Oh yeah,
mean,
21 episodes each or whatever.
pretty solid, right? Like,
You're you're really invested in those characters. I think the safest route, if you are, if you want to go outside of your comfort zone, wait for a show that like it's run its course. You know what I
mm,
mean? Like if people have never watched Superstore, that's a pretty good solid sitcom. It wrapped up maybe 1 or 2 years ago. It probably has 5 seasons,
really, okay.
and I think so. Maybe even more. It wrapped up just at the end of the pandemic. So that's a good example of the show was, it ran its course. It's 5 or 6 seasons. It's available on streaming as far as I know. That's what I would recommend. Don't get into a show that has all this hype because it may be canceled after one
I
season
like
and
that
then you're
idea. I
I
like the idea of, oh, this show is 4 or 5 seasons, it's wrapped up, and now I can like binge and enjoy the entire journey. I like
yeah,
that.
yeah, for sure.
Makes total sense
Cuz
to
I
me.
just saw this wasn't a show that I've watched yet, but um Kevin Bacon is in a Supernatural show on Prime. So Supernatural TV shows, that's kind of in my wheelhouse. I like Kevin Bacon. I watched a show with him where he like hunted a serial killer like back like this was probably 10 years ago now. Um it's not it wasn't I'm not looking for new shows, but that would be a show that would be on my radar if I was looking for a new show. Well, it's been canceled after one season. No, I'm not going to go and watch it now because for all I know, it's ended on a cliffhanger.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Our next fan question here comes from Ian. And Ian says, how would you both rate your abilities at fun movie-related games, such as trivia or other movie-related games. How would you rate your skills?
Well, people know that I can't remember anyone's names. I can't remember names of actors or television or movies. So
Well, I
I'm
think
doing it.
I would say if we were gonna to rank the hosts in general of this show, it would be really poor because I don't know if you remember. I think it was to kick off this show, or maybe it was to end the other one. We did a trivia episode that was all about our own show. I don't think we got many of them right.
No, our problem is that between the two of us, we don't have very good memory, but we're pretty good. If we were teamed up, I feel like one of us could describe the thing, and then the other person could name it, and vice
Yes,
versa.
I would agree with that. Yeah, if we were one, we could do that. As separate individuals trying to do movie related games, we were terrible.
I'm pretty good at trivia, but I'm not good if someone's like, "Oh, name that actress." And
Oh
it's like I
yeah,
can
yeah.
rattle off that filmography, but I can't remember her name like in a
You'd probably like,
pinch.
see the face too. You'd be like, I
Exactly.
literally can see the person, but don't know the name. Yeah,
Like I
yeah.
forgot Nicole Kidman's name like 3 weeks ago. Like how could I? Come on.
That's right. I don't think that was the worst one too. Like I think
No,
you've had a couple others that have been way worse.
pretty egregious. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I do like trivia. I would say I'm a fan of movie trivia. I do all right and pretty well there. But yeah, there's just something. I still go back to the fact that we couldn't answer questions about our own show.
Yeah,
Um,
that's brutal.
that was pretty bad. We'll have to do something like we'll have to do. We haven't done a game on this show in a while. I don't think. I don't remember actually.
No, I don't think we've done a game recently, so we'll have to have Austin, the producer, draft us the game soon.
Well, and I know we still have we've got a lot of things kind of in
Percolating.
the wings, right? Like of ideas for the show and stuff, but we're sort of kind of waiting to put a few things together. But we are doing movies in the hat. We're bringing that back, which is fun. That's kind of well, it's I guess more of a bit or a segment, but we're bringing that back because of a fan. And we're gonna do something fun with some guest hosts in a few weeks, and then well, it's summer movie season, so I got a lot of great stuff to watch coming up. So I'm pretty pumped about it.
There's a movie, and to talk about not having good memory, Mike, I'll forget about it, and then I'll see a trailer for it on social media, and I'm like, oh, I should mention that on the show, that's like my most anticipated movie of the summer. And then immediately after watching the trailer, I'll completely forget. So there are movies coming out that I too am excited about. I
Mm-hmm.
just can't remember them.
And eventually you will see them. You
Yep,
will review them, and you still won't remember that that was the one indeed. You're like, oh, that must be
exactly.
something else. All right. Well, that's our fan questions for the week. Thank you so much to everyone who wrote in. Just a reminder to write in a fan question. You can go to soul1arts.ca. That's SOL1arts.ca. You can fill out the form there. Screeninginkingston.com is still activated for another couple of weeks. Or, of course, you can email us, screeninginkingston@gmail.com. Doesn't really matter how we get fan questions. Sometimes we get fan questions about how to send in fan questions. You absolutely can do it any way you wish.
Yeah.
There's no rule. Now hold on, we might have. Hold
Oh,
on.
did something come in last minute?
Well, something has come in, but it's not. It's not a fan question. It's a submission to Movies from the Hat or Movie Club, which is still
Oh,
up there. And the submission is Mud.
with Matthew McConaughey?
I assume that's the one. So we got to add Mud to the hat here. I've never
People
seen
pick
it.
the weirdest. I've never seen it either.
And this is coming from Tommy. So Tommy, thank you so much. We'll put Mud in the hat. I'm double checking the email as I actually should do. Probably pre-show, I would say.
Probably.
Probably shouldn't be doing this whilst we're going through this. We also have unread Instagram messages that I haven't gotten to. I can't open Instagram for on the phone anymore for
Oh,
some
you're still
reason.
locked out?
I'm still locked out. Like I can get it through like the Meta Business Suite. Like I can see that people are sending
Sure.
us messages and I can read them off, but I can't. I have to be on a computer. It's a whole big thing. So sorry, Nicole. I'll get to your message when I can. But anyway, yeah. Thank you, Tommy. We'll put Mud in the hat. That's timely. We gotta add it to the hat. So there you go. We'll do that.
Very fun.
Let's review some movies. This week I watched Novacaine And Taylor, you watched Sexiest Man in Winnipeg. Um,
Yep.
the movie, not just an individual. Um, so I don't know. I guess let's begin there. We've made the joke, so we might as well start with that. I have not heard of this movie. So you said it was a documentary.
Yes. So this documentary, I saw it on Netflix. Not Netflix, Prime. I think it's brand new on Prime, or at least it's brand new on my Prime. So it is a 2025 release. I have not reviewed a documentary in a very long time, so I thought, okay, why not? I'll give you the basic premise, and this isn't a spoiler because you find out like I think it's in the trailer and you find out almost immediately. So um in the in 2017 there was a string of robberies, I want to say in Saskatchewan and one other province, and very quickly the police found out that the perpetrator was Steve Vogelsang. I might be pronouncing his name wrong. Mike, he was a sports broadcaster from Winnipeg in the 90s. So
Okay.
a little bit before our time, but I guess he was a bit of a local celebrity in the 90s. And so the documentary is it's not your typical true crime in the sense of it's not a who done it, it's a why did he do it. And it has some interesting framing. Like I feel like it does have some pretty, it felt like watching This Hour Has 22 Minutes. Like it did feel very Canadian.
Really?
For better
Yeah.
or for worse.
Yeah, interesting. I was about to ask how Canadian is.
Yes,
this,
it's
because
very
I will be the first to very much criticize our own filmmaking ability.
So it definitely took some interesting swings. The narrator of the documentary is a bison who is Steve's spirit animal. So like that's kind of like the framing device, I guess you could say.
I'm sorry, a bison, as in the
Yes, a
you're talking
talking
about
bison is the
is the
narrator.
narrator.
We
All
never
right.
find out why the bison is a spiritual animal. They
Okay.
also have him um so the way that the documentary is filmed is there's some talking head interviews, like very very classic. They're interviewing people about this individual. They knew him prior to the crimes, and so you're getting a sense of that. And then they have him, what I would say is like one of the swings they take is that they have him, the documentary is set up in such a way that he's traveling to all of his former like places where he's done bank heists. Is that like the scene of the crime? They're having him, and I apologize people, I have another cold. It was 2 weeks. It was about time I got another one, so I have another cold, so my words are not coming as quickly as I would like. But essentially, like, he's on a road trip to see some of the important places in his life, including the places where he's robbed banks. And you learn that he's an unreliable narrator. And so this movie, this documentary, because I want to be careful, like documentaries and movies are different. It is a feature length documentary, so it's about an hour and 20 minutes. But I felt like we learned very little about him. And the documentary sort of acknowledges that he is an unreliable narrator. And so the person, like, by giving him the mic, so to speak, like both literally and figuratively, it wasn't like I got a lot out of the story because we already know he's unreliable. So like, how do we know that everything he's saying isn't just a lie? You know what I mean? Like I felt like I don't know, like I just felt it was an interesting enough premise that like I was captivated. I don't want to say captivated, but like my attention was, I paid attention for the hour and 20 minutes, but at the end of the documentary I was like, so what? Like this would have made like an interesting like 3-page article in Maclean's. You know what I mean? Like you could have done like maybe an investigative journalism piece, couple pages. It didn't need to be a feature length documentary because I just felt like we did not learn anything about the guy.
Right.
And he says like his whole, like everyone's like, well, the guy we knew never would have robbed these banks. And then you find out through the course of the documentary that he was very depressed. He had financial problems, and this was like the quickest way he knew how to make money. And then like it's in at the end of the documentary, and I'm ruining this a little bit, but like it's not, I don't know, it's not a it's hard not to talk about a documentary in its full, you know what I mean, Mike? Like it's they're facts, so it's hard to not have spoilers, but essentially it's like one of the theories is that he committed the crime on purpose so that he could write a book about it later. But like you're like, again, so what? Like we don't know enough about this guy. I don't think making the documentary longer would have fixed it. I think that it just was, it's one of these stories where on paper it seems really riveting, but there just isn't enough facts and we'll never know. And by making him the main focus of the documentary, like by allowing him to essentially be the mouthpiece, it's like we're never going to get to the truth anyways. So anyways, I think it would have made a better, like I said, a better investigative journalist piece.
Right.
Like I would have liked to read this in like the Atlantic or Maclean's or whatever, right? Yeah. So ultimately for me, this was an airplane it. Because I think it's an interesting enough story, and like he's an interesting enough guy that you're like, okay, like I'll go on for like an hour and 20 minutes with you. But yeah, it's not, this isn't something that I would run out to go watch by any means. I think it just, like I said, the story was scant, like on details, and some of the decisions they made just felt like like classic Canadian filmmaking, which sometimes works and sometimes it doesn't.
It just doesn't sound very inviting. Like even as you're describing, I'm like, it doesn't really sound that interesting. Like I guess the premise is fine, but just the way they executed it and everything you're talking about, I'm like, oh, I don't know if that's like sustainable for a long kind of movie,
not
as
like
opposed to just a little, you know.
It probably, like, if this was 40 minutes, like a tight 40 minutes, I think it would be, it could have been quite good. And
if it was like one episode of a docu-series where they cover different things, and this is one of the topics, yeah.
Or like a podcast episode, like a 50-minute podcast, like I definitely would have listened to that. But I don't think it needed to be an hour 20. And there was just, there was something I was going to say, but it's left me. So if I come back to it. Oh, so they're describing, the talking heads are describing this guy that is like super charismatic. Like everyone loved him. And then the guy that you see, and granted, like he spent 3 years in what I can only assume is a federal prison. Like he's a little bit like, not to be uncharitable, but like washed up, you know? And so I'm like, the person that's projecting on screen is just like cringy. Like I don't see this charismatic, amazing guy that like duped everyone in the 90s. So he's not like a particularly likable character. It would be different if he was kind of like had this cowboy persona and you were kind of like rooting for him, but it wasn't like I was rooting for him while I was watching the documentary. So that also was difficult.
Yeah. No, it definitely, if you're not on the side of the person you're kind of following around, it does. I think it does. That's a challenge. It's not like it can't happen. There's been documentaries about, you know, horrible people, but I think
like that
it's
Auschwitz
a challenge.
Documentary you watched.
Yeah, and I think it's just a challenge. Like that's a challenge you have to overcome, and some do it well, and this one sounds like it didn't.
Yeah, I just too bad. Anyways,
there you go.
There you go. The sexiest man in Winnipeg. And he was voted the sexiest man in Winnipeg, Mike. That's why it's called that.
I'm sure that's not a hard competition to win.
They make the joke in the documentary.
yeah. I was ready to do the comedic, and we move on. So yeah, my movie I watched this week was Novacaine, which is the second movie this year with Jack Quaid in it.
He's
He
getting
was
a
in a
lot of
movie.
buzz.
Yeah, he was in a movie that I saw earlier, the one Companion. So yeah, I saw Novocaine, and it's basically the premise is he plays this kind of just dude. He's literally just a guy, and his girlfriend gets kidnapped, and he's basically on this kind of quest to get her back. The only thing is he can't feel pain,
Right.
so he has some sort of I guess,
Disorder.
yeah, like I guess it is real too, because I also remember this being vaguely on an episode of House,
Yeah.
where there's somebody who is like this, so he doesn't feel any pain, which this movie really stretches where that goes. Because the way I understand it is, you don't feel pain, but the complexity of that is you have to be constantly checking yourself for like bruises and broken bones, all these things, because though you can't feel pain, you can still die. Like you're not
Sure.
immortal. You'd still die of your injuries. You just wouldn't know it's happening.
Yeah.
You don't have pain receptors. So there's some times where things happen where it's like, yeah, that would be useful to not feel pain in that moment. And then other times where it's like, aren't you now bleeding out?
Yeah, you would be
Like,
dead.
aren't you? Oh, I hit my microphone. I did the amateur hour over here.
Rookie
I just
mistake.
punched my microphone straight in the middle.
You're just very passionate about Novocaine.
Yeah, I'm very passionate about you still would die. So this movie really takes that and stretches it a bit.
It's an action comedy, right?
That's right. Yeah. And so it's not overly realistic. You can't look at it in that way. It is kind of an action comedy. It's sort of a fun adventure comedy where Jack Quaid just plays kind of the same-ish type of role that I've seen him in, which he's just sort of like a dude who has to kind of deal with this ridiculous situation. And there's a lot of comedy in here. I think it is very funny. I think the comedy is pretty good. The action's really well done. It's well shot. Like it does do a pretty good job. It really does stretch that idea of whether or not this person would still be able to physically move around. If not, but with that being said, if you can get past that, it is just kind of a fun run of the mill action comedy. The big twist is it's basically like an inexperienced person having to go after someone. So it's unlike Taken or John Wick. It's not about skill. He barely succeeds in every moment. That's where the comedy comes.
He just
through.
lucks out.
He lucks out, and the fact that he doesn't feel pain really helps him through a lot of situations. And he has no plan. That's the best part of it. He has no plan. He just sort of does and goes for it, which is good. There's a lot of people in this that you probably couldn't name them, but if you look at them and like, oh, that person. So the supporting cast is pretty good. Amber Midthunder is in it, and she's pretty good. She was in Prey, which is a movie I really liked. She was great in that. She's really good in this as well. But this is really like a Jack Quaid vehicle. You spend almost the whole movie with him. It's really following his kind of journey through this. You don't really get a lot of character development from other people. You just meet people along the way as he's trying to kind of get from point A to B to C to D, et cetera, et cetera. But this movie was just like just under 2 hours on like a tight $18 million budget. I looked up like a very like low budget movie, and it was just kind of a fun movie. And what they did well with it was they balanced the action and comedy so well that it kept your attention. You were never really bored. I would say there was nothing like innovative or new or interesting or no like real twists or surprises in this movie, but I don't think it mattered because it just kind of reminded me of just kind of fun action comedies that aren't so too over the top like your Jason Statham and Rock movies, but not super dull and boring. Like there's lots happening. It is interesting. The character is interesting. We spend sort of time with him. If you can get past the kind of reality shattering thing as it moves on, it gets a little bit too ridiculous. I do think it's just a fun afternoon movie that really just does its job effectively on a pretty small budget, which is pretty good. This movie is one of those things that like you can tell because it had one writer, two directors, but like it had one writer It had like a singular vision. They knew what they wanted to do. They wanted to have fun with it. It was nothing that went too over the top at any point in time. It just pushed the envelope for me a tiny bit. So you can just tell that like people who cared about making an interesting movie made this movie. And I kind of like that. Yeah.
It's a small, a small fun movie. Here's a question for you. This is Dennis Quaid's son?
Yes.
Okay. So I have a question for you. It's back to the Nepo baby discourse, which I know some people
or legacy artist.
There you go. Okay, so my question. So I have two questions for you, Mike. Number one, would you change your last name? And some celebrities have done that, where they've changed their last name, or they kind of obscured their name in such a way that you can't directly tie them to their famous parent. So would you do that? That's my first question. Would you, if your parents were famous, would you obscure your last name or just own the fact?
No, I would 100% own the fact, because I do not care how I got in the room. It's what I do when I got there that matters. So long as I'm in the room, I'm happy. So no, I would not do that.
Mike, this is where it makes me so annoyed, because like that's literally how every other industry works. We don't talk about Nepo babies in the insurance industry, but that's literally how we don't. Yeah, for better or for worse. So okay, so you wouldn't hide it. So question number 2. And sorry, what's his first name again?
Jack.
Great name. Jack Quaid. Nepo baby or legacy artist?
I would say legacy artist, because this is so I've only seen the first season of The Boys, which he's in, and then I've seen now Companion and Novacaine. I haven't seen him in anything else. Apparently he was in Oppenheimer. I don't remember him.
I mean, a million people were in Oppenheimer. Everyone was in Oppenheimer.
So I've seen 3 roles out of him, and even though he certainly does have a type that they want him to play, 1, he plays it well, and 2, I do think he went into different areas in Companion that worked. And I do think he's good on screen. He's not. I don't think he's a Nepo baby, because you can tell he has some talent. He has some ability there. He has some training. So I guess he's the son of Meg Ryan and Dennis Quaid.
Those are big. Those are very big celebrities.
Big names. Yeah. So I've seen the first season of The Boys. Again, I'm not super into that show, even though people think I should be. He was very good in it.
That's your target demographic.
There are 3 shows, Taylor, I hear more from people all the time that I should be watching. 1 is The Boys, 1 is 3 Body Problem, and 1 is Breaking Bad. And I always disappoint them when I tell them, like, well, I've watched the season of The Boys. I was meh on it. There were aspects that I liked, aspects that I didn't. I didn't like the first season of Breaking Bad. I've never tried 3 Body Problem. I hear that from people constantly.
I feel like, though, that the Breaking Bad one, Mike, that's not a you specific. It's just people have told me to watch Breaking Bad. I'm like, no.
Yeah, it's just
pass. Not just everything. We don't have to like everything just because it's.
I don't have a problem with superheroes. See, that's the thing. Like people have this thing they do where when they grow up, they like something. And when they're older, they're like, oh, no, actually, it was toxic and horrible. And I actually don't agree with some things. Absolutely. But I don't
You're
agree
talking
with
about The Boys now. You're not talking about. Yeah.
No, I'm talking about Breaking Bad. I'm talking about how as a kid, we were like, meth. Absolutely. But as we're older, we're now like, no. That's bad. I'm talking about The Boys. I'm talking about superheroes, which is sort of an anti-superhero show. But what if superheroes exist in real life, and how many of them would be jerks, which I do think is very much true. But the idea of superheroes was that there's one. That's why there are super. People don't understand this. I punched the microphone again because I'm getting really into this, Taylor. This is what people don't understand. Comic books already did The Boys, and it's called Every Comic Book Ever. And the reason why is we focus on the hero. Let's say it's Superman, right? Who does Superman fight? Other people with superpowers who are evil, right? So we've already done this. Like, it's not like this is a new concept. What? I mean, Lex Luthor had the same amount of sponsors as the people in The Boys. So, like, it's ridiculous to think this is a new thing.
It's been a very, very long time since I read The Watchmen, the graphic novel, but is that not the basic premise of Watchmen? Like,
That is right.
One of our superheroes
The Watchmen.
good.
The Watchmen. The Watchmen, again, another example. And like it's always been the good versus evil. And the thing about The Boys that I didn't like was there really was, I mean, I guess you could say the one girl, she's sort of supposed to be the I'm doing this for the good kind of person. Aside from her, there's really not this sense of good versus evil, which is what I think is interesting to explore in a comic book. And because it's not real, I think that differentiation without shades of gray is kind of fascinating to look at. I like a mix of both. I'm fine with both kinds of stories. Real life already has a mix of gray. I don't need to see it on TV. That's why I don't like The Boys. With that being said, Jack Quaid is fine in it. Like, don't get me wrong. He's good in that show. He does that. He plays a dude. So, and it works. Like, his character works for that. He's good in it. It's just the show itself I'm not on board for.
What's the third? I feel like I've heard of the third body problem, but I don't. Is that also a superhero?
Yeah, I think it's called Three Body Problem, and I think it's more space, and it's based on a book, and it's a limited television series. But I've heard nothing but good things. I will say this is one that's on my list. I'm gonna try it. I've heard nothing but good things. Please don't at me if you're one of the people who told me recently you should watch this. I absolutely hear you, and I agree. I will watch it. I just haven't gotten around to it. It's more of a sci-fi science fiction, but the way I like sci-fi, where it's based in real
speculative
science.
Fiction.
That's right, based on like here's the science we have, so now we're going to speculate. Exactly. That's what I like about it. So it's like an 8-episode miniseries. Apparently, it's fantastic. It's a miniseries, so it's not a huge commitment. And it's from the creators of Game of Thrones.
Okay.
So there are a lot of good.
Definitely not my cup of tea, but that's okay.
No, but I think I get why people recommend.
Yeah, the sci-fi aspect. This 100%. Is definitely a Mike show on paper.
That's right. I couldn't agree more with the assessment. I was only making the comment that a lot of people say that to me.
Those are the 3 shows.
That's right. That come up constantly.
1 out of 3 is what you'll like.
And you know who the one person is, though, who said that I wouldn't like The Boys? Matt Salton.
Because he knows you well.
That's right. He's like, no, you wouldn't like The Boys. It's not for you. I was like, oh, okay. He's the only one who truly gets.
Isn't that funny, though, when people are like, they know you, but maybe they only know you on like a surface level, and they're like, you're going to love this thing. And it's like, I don't think you know me as well as you think you do.
Yeah, you need to understand that I'm too much of a Boy Scout to watch The Boys. I want my superheroes, my Superman to be bright and colorful and happy and cheerful. That's what I want. That's what I like. Again, unless it's Batman, who's a great superhero. But it's Batman. That's the point. That's the idea. So, yeah, that's the way I go. So, anyway, Jack Quaid, to answer your question, legacy artist as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
Which is good. And then I guess I haven't given my Novacaine rating. I'm going to give it a stream it. I don't think it's quite a see it. I don't think it was quite that good. It wasn't like I was, totally entertained the whole time, but I did think it was still a fun movie. It's a good afternoon movie. It's a good matinee movie. I think it's the perfect stream it kind of movie. Wouldn't run out to the theaters to see it, but it was a fun streaming.
You know what it reminds me of, Mike, and I could be off. I could be wrong because I haven't seen the movie, but as you were describing it, it reminds me of the type of movie my mom would watch on like the movie channel, like a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
And then afterwards there would be a Jason Statham movie on.
That's right. Yeah. And to be fair, like this would be an example of like a good version of all those movies that we're kind of talking about.
Sure.
Where it's not overly corny or cheesy. And again, just to be clear, there's nothing wrong with Jason Statham movies. There's nothing wrong.
My mom loves Jason Statham.
So I've seen some Jason Statham movies that I like. I'm not. There's nothing against him. I've seen some movies. He's been great in some movies. Nothing against him. This is a bit better.
But like what you're describing is like the one where I forget what it's called, but he's been injected with a drug, and if his adrenaline goes below a certain level, he'll die. His heart will explode.
That's right.
That's like
I don't know that name, but yes, this is exactly the kind of movie. There's a little bit of a premise that gives you something a little bit different, but essentially it's a go rescue the person.
Yeah, you're going from one thing to the other, and if you don't keep going, you'll die.
That's right. And again, it was well handled. That's why to me it's a stream it. So there you go. I did not think we would go back to the legacy artist versus Nepo baby conversation for a while. It's been a while since
You
we've
know why I brought it up? Because I
opened that.
saw a headline, Mike. I saw a headline of our favorite Nepo baby. Oh my gosh, she's in 50 Shades of Grey and Madam Web. She's Madam Web.
Dakota Johnson.
So Pedro Pascal was interviewing her because they're promoting The Materialists with I think Chris Evans is in that movie. I know nothing about it. I think it might be a rom-com, but anyways. So Pedro Pascal is interviewing her. I can't remember the exact question, but essentially she's like, I think the Nepo baby conversation is so boring. Journalists, get something new to write about. I'm like,
I can just, in you saying that, Taylor, I don't know if you meant to do an impression of her, but I could hear her voice in the way you said that. Like, that was very good. That's exactly how she speaks.
And then the comments were like, Pedro Pascal has been acting like since the 90s. He was literally on an episode of Buffy. Bring it full circle and go back to Buffy.
Wait, who was he on Buffy?
He plays, I'm pretty sure he's the vampire that Dawn goes on a date with, and then Buffy was like, I had to rescue you from a vampire.
Yes,
you're such an idiot. That's Pedro
he
Pascal.
Is. That's right. No. We're confused. It's the one where
does she go on a date with him?
No, she doesn't go on a date with him. But he comes up from the grave. And she realizes she knew him from high school. And they end up having like a kind of a date, like a night out together trying to figure out things. And he turns out to be a vampire. But it's sort of this weird like, I'm nice and you're nice. And this is kind of a nice conversation. But like, wait, I'm also evil? And she ends up dusting him in the end. But that's how she figures out that Spike's biting people again. Because Spike is the one who, I just looked it up, saw him, and went, "That's who that is."
So
of course.
But like, so the comments were like, Pedro Pascal's family, because she was like, "Oh, it was so my family cut me off, and then it was so embarrassing to have them have to like help me pay rent." And the comments were like, Pedro Pascal didn't have anyone to help him pay rent. Like he didn't become famous until like his 40s. Mm-hmm. How embarrassing. Like, does she have no filter that she's saying these things to?
I don't think she has that. Like, I don't think she has that kind of, she seems like socially awkward.
Yeah, she's just, and to her, like, that's her story and she's sticking to it. And Pedro Pascal is probably like, whatever.
It's so funny how, like, post Madam Web especially, I do like, I get more Dakota Johnson stuff now than I did before. And it's always something similar like this about how awkward she just is.
Just kind of like foot and mouth syndrome seems to be what she has.
Yeah. That's so wild that Pedro Pascal was on Buffy. And I know the episode you're talking about where Dawn also, because that's another, and I think that person ended up being famous too. Like whoever that vampire was who goes on a date with Dawn is also somebody. Because that's where she doesn't really get that he's a vampire. Then she finds that he's a vampire, and then she doesn't care. She's like, it's like Angel, and Buffy's like, he's not like Angel.
Do you remember the show Prison Break?
Yes.
So one of those guys was on an early episode of Buffy on the swim.
Wentworth Miller
on the swim
team. He was on the swim team. Yeah, Wentworth Miller was on Buffy. Yeah, on the swim team. So, lots of people were on Buffy, and then eventually went off and did other things.
Good
Buffy
for them.
Was definitely turning out the stars. Buffy the Vampire Slayer. That's a
great show.
That's a show that I would go back to 100.
Have you seen the headlines that they're rebooting it and they've cast their new Slayer?
Yes, but I believe it's one of those sort of reboot continuation-y things.
Yes.
Because if I remember, they'll follow the path that at the end of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, all the Slayers were activated. So this must be following a girl from another part of the world who becomes a Slayer, right? Because all the Slayer, whatever they call them, not apprentices, but potentials, were made in order to fight this big evil battle.
I know.
I believe Sarah Michelle Gellar is going to be in it too, though.
Yes, Sarah Michelle Gellar is going to be a producer, and she's also reprising her role as Buffy. So she must be mentoring. It'll be interesting. I never followed the comic book stories, but people take the comic books as canon. So are they going to just ignore the comic books?
I read 2 of them. I read 2 of the comic books just to see what was going on. And also, did Amber Amber
Runs.
Benson. She wrote a supposedly canon audio experience that's
Oh.
only like an hour or something, but Spike's in it, and apparently that's also canon in some
So
capacity.
it will
So,
be interesting, but they've also the cast have really what's the word I'm looking for? They've really distanced themselves from Josh Whedon.
yes,
And
is he
so
involved though? I didn't think he was involved.
I don't think he's involved. So that's
Yeah.
why it will be I'm curious if they're just going to ignore the comic book, the thing you're describing, and they're
Hmm.
just going to continue, do it obviously a time jump or whatever, like it's going to take place
Yeah,
in present day.
obviously.
Um very interesting. It's so interesting when the creator falls out of good graces, but the media is like bigger than them and has become more
Yeah,
than their
it's
creation.
bigger. Yeah, and that's the thing about for him specifically. Oh, well, he's okay. Never mind.
Is he involved?
No, he's just. I thought for a second, but no, he's just listed as the original creator. So he's
Right.
listed in as like a credit, but just his original creator. He had a TV show there that ran for a couple of years on HBO that I did start to get into, The Nevers.
Mm.
That was sort of Joss Whedon's kind of return. And actually, like again, say what you will about Joss Whedon, this show was actually quite fascinating, and I thought, well done. I didn't get through all of it, but I did think it was quite interesting and good and kind of a return to form. But yeah, you're right. A lot of people have distanced themselves from him, and I know this show didn't have anything to do with him. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what does happen if they get cameos or how they handle the canon. I would imagine they would just not worry so much about the canon. That's what they normally do with TV shows, but maybe do like little hints
Little
to other
nods.
things going on. Yeah,
It's
little nods. Yeah.
as much as I obviously would love to see a return of Spike. I was always a Spike girl, less an Angel girl. I'd love to see Spike come back. It would be cool to see Angel come back. But the thing,
The
but the
the
problem
best.
is,
Well, they're so much older now.
yeah, that's the problem. They play
They don't age.
ageless immortals.
But also, I don't know. Did you watch the TV show Angel at all?
I've only seen I didn't watch it in real time, like when it was
Okay.
first aired.
Okay.
I've probably only watched like the first 2 or 3 seasons.
Okay. I loved it. I really
Definitely
liked Angel.
tonally very different.
Very, very different tone wise, but especially seasons 3 and 4, I think are excellent of Angel. And then the 5th season, in order to try to save the show, because it only went for 5 seasons, they brought Spike on
Yeah.
because Buffy ended. Spike brought there. The Spike and Angel dynamic is incredible. Like that was there's a lot of issues with that 5th season, but the pairing of the two of them together, fantastic. Like it's so much worth watching just for the two of them together.
It's one of those shows that I do want to go back and revisit and like end.
It was so
like
it's so funny because one of the I don't think it was Joss Whedon, but one of the other creators said it's so funny how we've always had a hard time pairing Angel up with anybody. Like that was always an issue. Like who's Angel's sort of romantic connection?
Right.
Because even they tried it with Cordelia, and just like they've like nothing ever felt right until Spike. And then it was like that was the best pairing of the two of them. Yeah, the odd couple. They're like it was the best pairing ever. And no, I think if you're gonna watch the series beginning to end, I think there are ups and downs, but I do think overall you would enjoy a rewatch of Angel. I think it's a good series to go.
And speaking of people to go on to big things, the guy we joked about how I can't remember anyone's names, but he was in Mad Men and he plays Angel's son,
Vincent Kartheiser. Yeah, he went on to, but yeah, he had a huge run on Mad Men. He did all 9 seasons of Mad Men. Yeah, I couldn't believe it when I saw him, because I didn't get into Mad Men at the beginning, right? I watched years later, and I remember in like university seeing like a snippet of Mad Men and being like, Angel's son? That's not going to be any
for me
good.
it was reversed because I had watched Mad Men first. So
oh really? Okay.
what the heck? He's so young.
What a turn of character too.
Wow,
for that.
yeah.
Like, and again, he proved he's got acting chops because his performance in Mad Men, fantastic.
Yeah.
So very different than playing Angel's son. But yeah, that you're right. That was a very good thing. And yeah, I was always a fan of Cordelia.
Yeah, she's good.
And Charisma Carpenter. Like, I thought she was great. So yeah, I liked Angel for those reasons. Wesley is on the show. Like, again, like, they brought the characters they decided to bring on from Buffy. They just ended up working really well. And it developed kind of an interesting dynamic for the show. So yeah. There you go. That's our weekly Buffy talk. Stay tuned for more on Buffy, as I'm sure as it comes out. But thank you, everybody, for listening this week.
Go see some movies.
Thank you for listening to You Had Me at Skip It, a Soul One Arts Inc. podcast. This podcast is produced by Mike Shepard and Austin Spinner Summer. It is a project of Soul One Arts Inc. To learn more about Soul One and all the great work that Soul One is doing in the arts community, especially in film, theater, and other performing arts, visit soul1arts.ca. You can contribute to this podcast by visiting soul1arts.ca and going to the podcast tab. You'll find all the information on You Had Me at Skip It and how you can get your questions read on air each week. Thank you again for listening.